We all know that cops have the right to use force when needed, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it's justified. However, it's not unusual to hear about instances where cops use unlawful force when dealing with an individual, and as a result, things usually don't end up well for the cops involved. Such was the case here, and the details of this unlawful encounter are outrageous. Welcome to Audit Archive, where we run you through some of the most questionable and rather atrocious police encounters. Today, we are covering the unlawful arrest of a disabled elderly woman who was treated with excessive force and ended up severely injured as a result. There was lots of negligence involved, and we are here to dig into the case. All owners of the clips used in this video are credited down in the description, along with the respective links to each source. On 26th of June 2020, Karen Garner, a 73-year-old woman with dementia and sensory aphasia, was stopped by Walmart employees after she walked out of the store without paying for items worth around $14. CCTV footage shows Ms. Garner walking out with the items in her hands and then being brought back into the store soon after. Ms. Garner went on to try to pay for her items, but was refused service by the Walmart employees and asked to leave immediately, and so she did. However, one of the Walmart employees called the Loveland Police Department to complain about the theft, and minutes later, responding Officer Austin Hoop located Ms. Garner, who was walking home after the ordeal. Officer Hop parked his patrol car behind Ms. Garner and stepped out to stop her. This is when things went south. After failing to adequately communicate with Ms. Garner, Officer Hop violently throws her to the grass in an attempt to place her in handcuffs. This action was not justified. Ms. Garner showed no signs of a threat to Officer Hoop and did not attempt to flee, but rather continued walking on, something which could not have possibly been alarming enough to slam her to the ground with such force. In fact, Officer Hop's approach from the get-go appears to be out of place, as he asks the visibly confused Ms. Garner a needless question. Do you need to be arrested right now?
Do you need to be arrested right now? No. Okay. Let's stop.
After successfully placing Ms. Garner in handcuffs, Officer Hop leads her back to his patrol car, where he continues to use excessive force on her and tries to imply that she was allegedly fighting with him.
Why are you fighting with me? And why are you trying to slip the cuffs off?
The body cam footage very clearly shows that Ms. Garner was far from fighting with the officer. And it goes without saying that a 73-year-old individual would not require the amount of force that Officer Hop used on her to keep her detained. And all of this only comes into consideration if the detainee is mentally fit, which Ms. Garner was clearly not. Officers are required by law to use their judgment and identify whether a subject is mentally fit or not. And clearly, Officer Hop didn't bother to consider that at all. This was when Officer Daria Jalali arrived on the scene and assisted Officer Hop in yet another brawl that brought Ms. Garner down to the ground again, as if one officer's power wasn't already enough.
I'm going home. I'm going home.
Yeah, I know. I'm just trying to search her real quick.
Both officers then proceeded to secure Ms. Garner inside the patrol car as she continued to tell the officers that she was just going home. To which Officer Hop replied, while laughing, "No, you're not."
I'm going home.
No, you're not.
This goes to show, yet again, the negligent attitude of Officer Hop while dealing with the situation. As Officer Hop went to the other side of the patrol car to secure Ms. Garner, a Good Samaritan hops out of his car to confront Officer Hop, asking him if the aggression against the elderly woman was necessary. The young man who intervened had seen the entire situation play out from afar, and then proceeded to drive up to the scene. Officer Hop once again displayed more negligence, telling the young man to get out of there, as it was none of his business.
What are you doing? Get out of here. This is not your business.
After a short confrontation, Officer Hop goes back to assisting Officer Jalali in securing Ms. Garner. Once Ms. Garner was successfully placed inside the patrol car, Officer Hop asks for her date of birth in an attempt to identify her, but fails to receive a response.
What's your date of birth, Karen? What's your date of birth? Okay.
Considering Ms. Garner's disability, it comes as no surprise that she would have trouble comprehending what Officer Hop is demanding, let alone trying to recall her date of birth. Both officers seemed to completely oversee the possibility of Miss Garner suffering from a disability, even though it became very obvious by then. Soon after, both officers had a casual discussion, Officer Jalali expressing her concerns for Officer Hop, saying that, "Had you said you were fighting, I would have gotten here quicker."
Had you said you were fighting, I would have gotten here quicker.
And Officer Hop replies with remarks about Miss Garner, saying that she was like 20 pounds.
Oh, you were good. I had her handled. If it was a big dude, it'd have been different. But she was like 20 pounds.
This goes to show that Officer Hop had known very well that Miss Garner was a fragile elderly woman in her old age, yet he still showed excessive aggression against her. Things get even more questionable when both officers appear to be unsure about what Miss Garner would be ultimately charged with. Officer Jalali shows to have no clue about what Miss Garner could have done wrong in the first place. Sergeant Phil Metzler, the fourth responding officer, tells Officer Hop that Miss Garner would be charged with resisting arrest and obstruction, even if the Walmart store decided not to press charges.
It's the 200.
For what?
Well, at least resisting right now.
Is that a 200? Yeah, okay.
Alright,
Hey.
let's get her down the station.
Okay, we don't need to wait for Capella.
No, we can see what I mean, we know she, what's it say?
She stole some stuff, and they caught her before she left and got it back, and then she ran out. So we have the...
And then you contacted her for that.
And then she resisted
obstructed.
and
Resisted, so
we're good either way.
So we're good either way.
Cool.
She's going.
All right.
We're gonna have, if they decide not to prosecute, I don't care.
Cool. Okay, we'll head down there.
Upon arriving at the police station, Miss Garner is carried inside a holding cell and handcuffed to the bench. She was left there alone for 6 hours, and as a result of all the force used against her, Miss Garner was left with a fractured arm, dislocated shoulder, sprained wrist, and a body covered in bruises. Right after this, Officer Hop, Officer Jalali, and Community Service Officer Tyler Blackett were recorded by a police station surveillance camera laughing and joking while watching footage of the arrest from Officer Hop's body cam.
Very excited, like, I was super excited. What happened when you got on stage? You was like, start motion to say. It would pop a little bit, but she's so little. I was like, I'm gonna say, hey, I'm fighting. Have everyone in the city run code and rank more. Yeah. I was like, I'm fine. I can handle it. I mean, y'all. So I was like, all right, let's wrestle, girl. Let's wrestle. Right on the ground, all that stuff. Got her cuffed up. That was eerie. And then I had her get the cobra when she showed up. But the cuff was like here on her hand. I'm like, oh.
All of this went on while Miss Garner was in a holding cell nearby. Officer Jalali was heard saying, "Body cams are my favorite thing to watch. I could watch live stream body cams all day." Both Officer Jalali and Officer Hop exchanged a fist bump when discussing how the arrest went. Officer Hop said that the arrest went great and we crushed it.
How do you think that went?
Well, that went crazy.
You do?
Did you know? Apparently you did not.
No, I did.
I thought we were crazy. We were crushed.
But every time I would try to jump in, like I got pushed off to the side, so I don't want you to think that I'm not acting.
I didn't think you were. I thought you were right in there the whole day.
He was also heard saying that he didn't give Miss Garner a Miranda warning and referred to her as ancient, senile, and flexible.
Did I push you off to the side? I'm very sorry. I didn't think there's I was trying to fit in behind here.
Yeah, it's okay.
Okay.
I just don't want you to think I was not
Like that. You're definitely lying. You're a lot of help. She's just very flexible and very.
He also described dislocating Miss Garner's shoulder. I was pushing. I hear pop. I was like, oh no.
I was pushing here. I was like,
As that moment approached in the video they were watching, Officer Hop said to the others, "Ready for the pop?" and "Hear the pop?"
Yeah,
A federal lawsuit filed April 14, 2021, named the City of Loveland, Officer Hopp, Officer Jalali, Officer Blackett, Sergeant Phil Metzler, and Sergeant Antonina Hill, who approved the officers' paperwork, as defendants. The lawsuit alleged that police used excessive force, failed to provide Ms. Garner with medical care, and violated the Americans with Disabilities Act. As a result, Officer Hopp was put on administrative leave while the police department investigated, and Officer Jalali and Sergeant Metzler were given administrative duties. After filing the suit, Ms. Garner's attorneys uploaded body cam footage of the arrest to YouTube, prompting a public outcry. Following this, the city announced it would open an independent investigation into Ms. Garner's treatment. Colorado's 8th Judicial District Attorney, Gordon McLaughlin, said his office's critical response team would investigate whether there was any potential criminal behavior by the Loveland officers. In a statement shared with the Post, McLaughlin said he had reviewed the booking cell footage released on Monday and that the investigation is a priority for my office. The statements on the video are very concerning, McLaughlin said. On May 19, 2021, the Colorado 8th Judicial District Critical Response Team concluded an investigation into the incident, and criminal charges were filed against both Officer Hopp and Officer Jalali. Officer Hopp was initially charged with 3 counts, including assault, but pleaded guilty to a single charge of second-degree assault, a Class 4 felony, on March 2, 2022. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Meanwhile, Officer Jalali pleaded guilty to a single count of failure to intervene in Larimer County District Court in June of that year, where she was sentenced to 45 days in jail with 36 months of probation. As the case came to an end in November, the City of Loveland held a news conference to release the findings of an independent investigation into the arrest of Karen Garner, and what they revealed made the entire ordeal even worse. The independent audit revealed that Sergeant Metzler had changed the case number on his body cam footage that had recorded the Good Samaritan who complained about the arrest. The independent audit revealed that Sergeant Metzler had changed the case number on his body cam footage that had recorded the Good Samaritan who complained about the arrest. The report video revealed that the body cam footage case number from Metzler's camera was moved to an unrelated incident number. Loveland City Manager Steve Adams said that the Loveland Police Department has focused heavily on being a better police department and focused on implementing the best-in-class practices for the Loveland community. As a result of this case, Loveland ultimately settled the Garner family's lawsuit for $3 million. It's safe to say that justice was served, but what's important is that all relevant departments take into account the severity of this case and ensure that such incidents do not take place in the future.